Well, is it a business decision or is it an example of state censorship under the tyrannical rule of dictator Donald Trump? News that CBS will not renew The Late Show with Stephen Colbert beyond this season has CNN assuming the worst.
A country where you can't lampoon a sitting president is not a free country. A country where you can't publish editorial cartoons or have late night monologues or have satires about the president is not a democratic country. Of course, we're not there. We're not there at all right now. There are lots and lots of figures who are famous for mocking and deriding President Trump. But the idea that Colbert might be taken off the air, that his voice might be silenced, it certainly is creating a little bit of a chill in the air today, Dana.
Joining us is podcaster Brad Polumbo from Miami. Never a chill in the air when you're joining us, Brad. The Late Show regularly made fun of Trump. Is that why it's been cut, or is this another example of Trump derangement syndrome from CNN?
Yeah, look, this is an absurd meltdown. The Stephen Colbert Show was losing $40 million a year. It was a massive budget black hole that, if anything, was probably kept on air over the last several years because of just how anti-Trump it was. Its perpetuation was political, not its cancellation. And the idea that there's going to be some shortage of anti-Trump voices in our mainstream media or on CBS or on Paramount or any of these platforms is ridiculous. It is funny. It's been comical to me to see them melt down and scream censorship and apocalypse over this when it's really not that deep, because it discredits the legitimate critiques they might have of the Trump administration, and it shows you actually just how little comedy the Colbert Show was actually doing. One by one, Democratic leaders have come out and praised how amazing this show was and how Stephen Colbert spoke truth to power. But what's so funny about that is that if he was actually doing it, you wouldn't have politicians from either party, in this case, uniformly Democrats, praising him. Because if you're actually holding people accountable, then they're not going to love you like that. So the whole thing is a really absurd spectacle.
Yeah, and also that the show wouldn't be bleeding millions of dollars per year. So it's just extraordinary. Now, look, let's change pace. There was a real shocking incident in LA over the weekend when a man who was thrown out of a nightclub got into his car and drove through a crowd of 30 people waiting outside. Brad, this man's been arrested, but not before he was dragged from the car and beaten by the crowd. What happened?
This is a really scary story, but honestly, we're seeing an increased, or maybe just increased attention to in these kinds of deranged incidents. But I don't blame these people for taking a little bit of justice into their own hands on this. We have a lot of unhinged people in our society, and whether it's this or whether it's mass shootings, it really does kind of sicken your soul and your heart that people engage in these acts of senseless violence. I'm not sure exactly what could be done to prevent stories like this from happening, but this isn't normal. Something is sick with a lot of people where they're going out and doing crazy things like this, and America needs to reckon with that.
Yeah, it's a really shocking story, and heart goes out to all those injured in that incident. The next US election, Brad, is not for another 3 years, but already bookmakers have current Vice President J.D. Vance as, well, almost an unbackable favourite. Here he was being questioned about his ambitions on Fox News.
You run for president after this. I know you're going to tell me you're going to focus on being vice president right now. But people are wondering if we can accomplish all of this in 4 years, and they want some security in that. Is JD the man to continue the MAGA agenda?
Well, look, man, I really am just not focused on politics. I'm not focused on the midterm elections in 2026, much less the presidential election in 2028. When we get to that point, I'll talk to the president. We'll figure out what we want to do.
Brad, I always love a politician who says he's not focused on politics, but for him to be the unbackable favourite in 2028 is hardly a surprise, I would have thought.
No, it's not surprising. It's kind of the natural successor to the Trump movement. It'll be tough, though, because we do kind of have a seesaw effect in American politics where after you have one president of one party who leaves office, it's a tough task to win election again as that same party. So if J.D. Vance is the 2028 nominee, and he's certainly the front runner at this point, there'll be a lot of momentum going against him after 4 years of Trump. And America does like to kind of swing back and forth, but he is talented. He is good at this. There's really no denying that. So he will be well positioned to try to pull off that difficult task. And right now, he's the unambiguous front runner.